Hey there, this is Brendan with Business for Chummies. In this short tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at how to add and manage drop-down lists in your Excel spreadsheet. So I've got a list of well-known dinosaurs here and some data related to them. I've got their name in column A, the maximum speed, the maximum length, and then in column D, I have a column for the aggression level for each of these dinosaurs. And in this column, what we want is to add a drop-down list where the user can select from a preset list of values rather than having to type in values. And the value of having a drop-down list is that it ensures all of the data that your users are entering or that you're entering is the same because you're not having to manually type and there's less room for error. So there's a couple ways to generate a drop-down list in an Excel. I'm going to show you the first one here, which is to manually set the list of values in a drop-down. So I'm going to highlight cell D2 here. I'm going to navigate up to the Data tab and then to the Data Validation selection. From the drop-down menu here, I'll select List. And in the source column, rather than choosing a source, I'm just going to manually type in my values. So from the nice to mean side, I'm going to say there's a value for so nice, nice, mean, and mean AF. And then I'm just going to hit OK. Now that generated a drop-down list here with my values. This is really nice if you have only like one or two fields on your sheet that need to have a drop-down menu. Um, Something like a form where you're choosing very specific values like cell phone or home phone, things like that. But this doesn't work as well for a large data set. If I had a large data set and many rows, I wouldn't want to maintain those values as typed values because it makes it a little bit more difficult to maintain and update if I need to add, remove, or change those values. So what we're going to do here is we're going to actually use a reference to an existing list of values that I have stored over here in another worksheet. So I have another worksheet here of aggression levels. I have those typed out, and that allows me to store those values in one location and refer to them in a drop-down menu. So I'm going to come back over here to my D2 cell. Again, I'm going to navigate to the data validation selection. I'm going to delete my list of comma-separated values. And I'm going to click this lookup button over to the right. I'm going to navigate to my drop-down values worksheet, highlight my list of values, hit enter, and then hit OK. And so what that did is now it has the list of values in here that are stored on the other worksheet. And what's nice about that is now I no longer have to make updates to my values directly in the cell validation. If I ever want to change or update the values that I want to be displayed in this list, I can simply do that here. So if I want to change it from so nice to really nice, for example, there's no need to go back into the data validation. That those drop-down menus are automatically updating. Now, one issue is that if I want to add a value to the bottom here, let's say the meanest of them all, the mother-in-law Fury. If I add that as the row at the bottom here, when I navigate back to my drop-down menu, you see that it's not there. That's because the range that it's looking for did not extend into the sixth row. If I were to add a row in the middle here, let's say I add a neutral row. Because I added it in the middle, it's going to recognize it, and Excel is automatically going to extend the range between the two bookends, between really nice and mean AF. It's going to know that neutral now is in the middle, and it should be one of those values. So I could go back in and update that range here. I could say I want this range to be from A6 to A7 now. But what if my values were all the way across here? Brachiosaurus, really nice. Vegisaurus, like a big cow, as we know from Timmy. And Earl Sinclair, I guess he's probably neutral. Now the problem is if I want to update across this entire set, If I wanted to make additions, for instance, if I wanted to add this seventh value, I would need to go back in and do the data validation for all of these cells. You notice that it's not currently capturing it. But one thing I like to do is actually use a named value for a data set. So one thing Excel allows you to do is give a specific name to a data set rather than for a specific range. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight these values here in column A, and I'm going to give this a name up in the top left here. I'm going to call this aggression levels. And then what I'm going to do is in my aggression level data set here on my column D, I'm going to come back up to the data validation. And rather than determining a specific range that I might need to update or change, I'm going to give it a reference, which is my aggression level name, and hit OK. And now what that's doing is it's another step removed. Rather than referencing a range, it's referencing that specific name. And so what's nice about that is if I ever need to change the values that are included in this range, I don't actually ever have to touch the data again because the data is referencing the name of the range. It's not necessarily referencing the range itself. So I could add a couple values here, got 2-year-old aggression level, and let's say enraged politician. Now you'll recall that my range for the aggression levels goes down to row 7 here. If I highlight up to row 9, you'll see that that name no longer covers that. And my drop-down menus don't include any of those values. So all I really need to do now is update that my name it needs to extend to the row 9, and I'll do that over in the Formulas tab. I'll go to the Name Manager. We'll see our name that's saved here, aggression levels. I'm just going to hit Edit, and here's where I'll edit the range. I'll say I want this to go from A7 down to A9. And I'll close that. And what we'll see is now, because all of these cells referenced that name value, I don't need to go in and update the range on each of these cells. All I need to do was update the range on the name itself, and now the cells which are referencing that name will be automatically updated. So really nice features, really easy to use. Hope you enjoyed something and had fun. We'll see you next time.